Benjamin, your hair is a lot longer than my hair.
Yeah, I've been looking at your hair and I think you need some. You can buy some of mine. If you
Buy some?
Yeah. Because I got to make a profit, man.
Are you ready to count us down?
I am, yeah. I can do that.
And you can do it in different languages.
I can do it in about 5 different languages, but
Which one would you like to do it in?
Chinese Mandarin?
You're learning the language?
I am, yeah. I spend a bit of time in China and I'm learning the language, so I need to practice.
Here we go.
Backwards. Wo, sir, san, er, yi.
Are you a big reader of poems, other people's poems?
Yes, I believe that to stay healthy, you've got to read at least a poem a day, and I read probably a bit more than that.
When did you first publish a poem?
My first published poem, I put a poem on BBC once when I was like 11 years old. I just sent it in and acted like I was a 50-year-old bloke called Wilbert Smith. But my first publication was when I was about 18. It was in kind of a student magazine or something like that. I wasn't a student, but I acted like a student.
How would you describe your poetry?
It's direct. It can be a bit angry. It's political. It can be a bit funny. And sometimes it can be all those things in one poem. Most of all, I'm really trying to connect with people who don't normally like poetry. A lot of my followers, I was going to say fans, but I don't really have fans. I have sympathizers. They will say that they don't normally like poetry, or I'm the only poet that they read or listen to.
Tell me about speaking your poetry, reciting it, because you go on tours doing that.
Yeah.
Why does that matter to you?
Publishing is also important. You know, you have this written tradition and the oral tradition, but the oral tradition I think is much more direct. The audience is in front of me. They connect with the poem immediately. It's very democratic. I've been doing a gig and someone's got up and said, I've got a poem like that. And I said, come up and do it then. You know, and they just got up and done it with me. So I like the directness of it. And even when governments and dictators start banning and burning books, you know, we can still speak poetry to each other.
What do people mean, do you think, when they call you a dub poet?
Dub poet comes from dub, which is the B version of reggae records. When they used to make reggae records in the past, they couldn't afford to record a B-side. So they would do an instrumental version, a kind of remix, and then they would employ people like me to come and speak my poetry over the dub version of this record, hence the word dub poet. But, you know, my last album had kind of hip-hop, dance, kind of jazz in there, and so a lot of us shy away from that now.
Is it true that you were top of the Yugoslavian charts in the 80s at one point?
I am really big in Yugoslavia, or I was big in the former Yugoslavia. I had a #1 hit there in the 80s with an album called Rasta, and I was a Yugoslavian millionaire. I had to go there and spend my money because they wouldn't let me take it out. So I lived like the real high life for a couple of years, spent all the money and came back to old England.
When did you become a Rastafarian?
When I was about 13, I started to ask the question, you know, what is the meaning of life? I was very spiritual, but I was also very political. My mother's kind of Christianity didn't allow that. You just had to be spiritual and don't think of politics. When you die, you go to a nice place. And I wanted that nice place to be on earth. Rastafari allowed me to be political and spiritual at the same time, so I went for it.
Do you see yourself still as a campaigner against racism?
Yes, and I think I'll be doing it all my life. I think it's important that poets and singers don't just sing about freedom, sing about justice, that we actually get up and go out there and campaign for it and stand up and be counted.
Do you see yourself as a political figure?
No, I see myself as a human being. I don't even see myself as an activist, really. I think we should all be activists. It's our duty to be active in our community. I think when somebody calls me an activist, I think it just means that they're not.
Tell me about the music you listen to in your own time.
My collection of music is vast. I mean, I love Rachmaninoff, but I also like mindless dance music that just goes forward to the floor, boom, 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 boom. I love Marley, I love Bob Dylan.
Didn't you write a letter to Bob Marley?
When I was a kid, I wrote a letter to Bob Marley, and he wrote me a handwritten letter back, and it was the most inspiring thing that could ever happen to me, because I think that really spurred me on to become a poet, well, to carry on being a poet. Are
you a reader of prose as well as poetry?
Yeah, I read a lot of non-fiction. I like to try and educate myself, because I left school when I was 13, uneducated really. and I'm trying to catch up. But I read prose when I can, and a lot of my friends will read things and then recommend them to me because they know the kind of thing that will turn me on.
What was it like becoming famous, becoming well known?
One of the great things for me was meeting people there who I only saw on television. But then I met a lot of them, and sometimes I was let down. The great thing for me is being able to travel and really connect with people. As a poet, you don't want to be too famous because you want to blend in the background when you go to parties and things like that. So I don't want to be too famous. So, you know, go easy on this program that you're making about me.
And that is it.
5 minutes. Well, Andy Warhol said 15 minutes of fame, so 5 minutes. We can do 2 more of these.
Great to see you.
Take care, brother.